Suga walked to the microphone. The stadium was already at a level of noise that is difficult to describe to anyone who has never stood inside 88,000 people all simultaneously feeling the same thing. It was the kind of sound that stops being sound and becomes something more physical, something you feel in your chest before you process it with your ears. And into that, Suga said a number. Not a speech, not a reflection, not the kind of elaborate, poetic stage address that gets clipped and transcribed and analyzed for weeks. Just a number. 2 sentences at most. Quiet, in the way that Suga says everything, with the specific economy of someone who has learned that the fewer words you use, the more weight each one carries. And the camera that happened to be pointed at Jimin when Suga said it, caught something that lasted less than 2 seconds. Something that has now been watched more times than almost any other clip from the entire first night in Paris. Not because it was dramatic, because it was completely unguarded. And on a night with 88,000 witnesses, that is the rarest thing there is. This channel exists for the army that understands why the 2-second clips matter more than the highlight reels. The ones who know that the most important documentation of what this group is and what the people in it mean to each other almost never happens in the parts of the show that were designed to be seen. The last section of this video is going to give you the full context for what Jimin's face was actually responding to. And once you have that context, the clip becomes something else entirely. July 17th, 2026, Stade de France, Saint-Denis, Paris. 88,000 people. BTS's first night back in France in 7 years. The last time they were here, June 2019, also at the Stade de France, the world was a different configuration. The pandemic hadn't happened. The military service hadn't happened. The hiatus, the solo careers, the years of each member existing in their own separate orbit while the group waited to reassemble, none of that had happened yet. In 2019, roughly 44,000 people came each night. In 2026, that number had doubled. And the person who chose to say that out loud, on stage, in front of the crowd that proved it, was Suga. The ment segment in a BTS concert is the part that casual observers often underestimate. It looks, from the outside, like a break. 7 people talking to the audience between songs, loosening the atmosphere before the next sequence begins. What it actually is, for ARMY who have been watching long enough, is the most unscripted part of the evening. The part where the performance personas thin out and the actual people show through more clearly. Where things get said that weren't planned and where the responses to those things, from the crowd, from the other members, reveal something that the choreographed portions of the show simply cannot. On the night of July 17th, during one of those ment segments, Suga spoke. He noted in the specific way he says things that matter, without inflection, without build-up, without the kind of theatrical framing that would make it feel performed, that the stadium held 88,000 people tonight. And then he said, twice as many as 2019. 2 sentences, a number and a comparison. And the crowd, which was already at a decibel level that the venue's infrastructure was presumably built to withstand, but that still felt structurally ambitious, went somewhere else entirely. The fan cam that caught Jimin was not pointed at him intentionally for this moment. This is the crucial detail. The person operating that camera had no particular reason to be tracking Jimin in the specific beat when Suga said those 2 sentences. They were doing what fan cam operators do during men's segments, maintaining coverage of the stage, shifting between members, capturing whatever the moment offered. What the moment offered in this case was Jimin's face in the 2 seconds after Suga finished speaking. There are expressions that are easy to read because they belong to familiar categories: happiness, surprise, pride, the kind of emotional states that have legible, socially understood physical signatures that anyone can identify. Jimin's expression in those 2 seconds doesn't belong cleanly to any of those categories. The closest description that circulated, and dozens of accounts tried before landing on something that felt accurate, was this: the specific look of someone who is hearing something said out loud that they already knew but didn't expect anyone else to say. Not surprise, recognition. The kind that sits differently than surprise because it doesn't require new information. It requires an old feeling being confirmed by someone else's words. The clip appeared on X within the first hour after the show ended. The account that posted it was not large. The original post had no particular context attached, no lengthy explanation, no analytical thread. Just the clip and a caption that said, "The way Jimin looked at Suga when he said 88,000, twice as many as 2019. By the next morning, it had been watched more times than any other clip from Paris Night 1. By that afternoon, it had crossed into spaces that don't usually receive BTS content: music industry accounts, entertainment journalists, general interest pages that had covered nothing about this tour before. The comments from those outside spaces were variations of the same thing, some version of, "I don't know the full history here, but I can see that this moment means something." That sentence, that specific phrase, became the comment that got pinned and reshared most frequently, because it articulated something true about why the clip traveled the way it did. You don't need the full history to see that the moment means something, but if you have the full history, the moment means considerably more. Here is the full history, or at least the part that makes the clip make the most sense. June 2019, Stade de France, Paris. BTS's first time performing at the venue, the Love Yourself, Speak Yourself tour. Approximately 44,000 people each night. At that point in BTS's trajectory, playing the Stade de France was itself an extraordinary achievement. They were the first Korean act to headline the venue. The significance was not lost on the group or on ARMY. The shows were documented extensively, talked about for months afterwards, and have been referenced repeatedly in the years since as one of the landmark moments of that era. Jimin and Suga were both there, obviously. They performed those 2 nights alongside the other members in a stadium that felt enormous then, and was half the size of what they filled on July 17, 2026. Between those 2 Paris shows, 2019 and 2026, sits everything that happened. The pandemic that shut down live music globally for 2 years, the hiatus that BTS entered in 2022, the military service that took each member away from the group in sequence, restructuring the entire architecture of their shared career, the solo albums, the individual careers, the years when BTS as a performing unit didn't exist in the way it always had. And then, the comeback, the Arirang album, the World Tour, the leg that brought them through Goyang, Las Vegas, Tampa, New York, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Tokyo, Seoul, Madrid, Brussels, London, Munich, and finally back to Paris, to the same venue, with twice as many people. Suga knows numbers. This is not a trivial observation. He is the member of BTS who has spoken most directly across the longest span of time about the relationship between the music they make and the people who listen to it, about what it means when an audience grows or shrinks or changes in character. His solo work as August D is built on an unflinching attention to where things stand, what has been lost, what has been gained, what the distance between one point and another actually represents. When Suga said 88,000, twice as many as in 2019, he wasn't reading a statistic off a card. He was doing the thing he has always done, making the abstract concrete, taking a number that could feel impersonal and giving it specific weight. Twice as many people chose to be in this room 7 years later than chose to be here the first time, after everything that happened between the 2 nights. That's not a number, that's a statement about what BTS survived and what they built on the other side of it. And Jimin, who was there in 2019, who was there through everything in between, who was on that stage in 2026 when the number was said, heard it the way you hear something when you were part of the before and the after simultaneously. There is a 2024 video from the Disney Plus travel show that Jimin made with Jungkook, where Jimin called Suga from California mid-trip, not for any particular reason that was stated, just called. Suga answered almost immediately. He mentioned he had just woken up, was heading to the gym, standard, domestic, unremarkable. fans talked about that call for weeks, not because of what was said, but because of the speed of the answer. Because in a world where everyone is busy and schedules are complicated, and members who have been through military service together are navigating a new version of their shared existence, Suga picked up immediately. That call was from California in 2024. The Paris clip is from a stadium in 2026. Different context, different scale, completely different setting. The same quality of attention. Suga looked at where Jimin was going to be in the stadium before the New Jersey show began, so he would know which direction to face from the stage. Suga said a number in Paris, and a camera happened to catch Jimin's response to it. In both cases, the connection between them is legible without needing to be explained. There is one more layer to the Paris clip that the initial coverage largely missed. Because most of the discussion focused on Jimin's expression, which was, as established, the thing that made the clip travel, the 2 seconds, the recognition, the specific quality of an expression that doesn't fit neatly into a category. What didn't get as much attention was what happened in the approximately 4 seconds before Jimin's expression changed. In the stabilized, zoomed version of the clip that circulated later, the one that several accounts produced specifically to capture more detail than the original, Jimin's attention is already on Suga before Suga finishes speaking. Not on the crowd, not on the screen, on Suga. He's watching Suga say it, which means he hears it as Suga says it, not as an announcement received from a general direction. He hears it from the specific person who chose to say it. And that distinction, receiving information as a crowd versus receiving it from a person you know, changes how information lands. 88,000 people from the stadium sound system is a fact. 88,000, twice as many as in 2019 from Suga, who was also there in 2019, who also lived through everything in between, who also came back and stood on the same stage with a stadium that had doubled in size, is something else. It's two people sharing a number that they both have a history with. And Jimin's face, in those 2 seconds, was responding to the history, not the number. By the end of Paris Night 1, a secondary thread had appeared alongside the clip analysis. It wasn't about the clip specifically, it was a compilation, the kind that takes time to put together, that requires someone to go through a significant amount of footage from a significant span of time. Every moment across 13 years of BTS, where Suga said something in a public setting and the camera caught Jimin's response to it specifically. The compilation ran to about 4 minutes, every clip different in context, in setting, in what was being said. Some from concerts, some from variety content, some from behind-the-scenes footage, some from press events. And in every single one, without exception, Jimin's attention was already on Suga before Suga finished speaking. The pattern is consistent enough that it stops reading as coincidence. It starts reading as something closer to a habit, the specific orientation of someone who has learned over a long period of time and through a significant amount of shared experience that the thing Suga says is usually worth being fully present for. Paris Night 1 ends. 88,000 people leave Stade de France. One more night in Paris, then New York, then the FIFA World Cup halftime show, the largest audience any performer can stand in front of. And all of that is 1 day away when Suga said a number and Jimin's face did something that lasted 2 seconds and got watched millions of times. Not because it was designed to be watched, because it wasn't. Because it was a moment between two people who have a 13-year history with exactly the kind of thing Suga was describing. The distance between a before and an after. The specific weight of a number that represents how much can change while something essential stays the same. 88,000 people, twice as many as in 2019. Jimin knew what that meant without anyone explaining it. His face said so. And ARMY, who also knew what it meant, watched the clip again and again because it said something about where they all are, the group, the fans, the shared history, that couldn't have been said any other way. There is something worth sitting with at the end of this. Not a theory, not an analysis, just a question. Suga could have let the number exist without saying it. 88,000 people were already in the room. They didn't need to be told. The achievement was already visible, already audible, already present in every decibel of sound filling that stadium. He chose to say it anyway. And he said it in a way that was not a speech, not a celebration, just here is a number, and here's what it means, and I'm going to say it out loud so that the room understands exactly what it's standing inside. What do you think that choice says about how Suga processes moments like this one? And what do you think it means that the person whose face the camera found in the 2 seconds after he finished speaking was Jimin? If you've been watching these two long enough to have your own version of this question, the space is here. The most precise things that have ever been said about who Suga and Jimin are to each other haven't come from interviews or official content. They've come from the 2-second clips, from the moments no one planned. From Paris, July 17th, 2026, from a number and a face and everything in between.